Good morning, everybody, and welcome to this webinar from the ECIIA, which is focused on the Risk in Focus 2025 and in particular digital disruption. My name is Anne Brooke and I am the Head of Technical Content and Research at the Chartered Institute of Internal Auditors for the UK and Ireland. I want to welcome today our two panelists, who are Daniel, who's the Technology and Cybersecurity Internal Audit Manager at Iberdrola, with over 20 years professional experience in assurance and advisory roles with a very strong focus on IT. So welcome and thank you, Daniel, for being here and joining us today. And also Mark, who's Professor for Internal Auditing and Dean of the Mercator School of Management at the University Duisburg-Essen, with over 150 publications in top international journals to his name, and author of 7 textbooks on strategy, corporate governance and internal auditing. So thank you to you as well, Mark, for coming today, and welcome to this session. I'm going to hand over now to Maman, who is going to take us through the brief presentation on the findings from the Risk in Focus 2025. So Maman, if you'd like to introduce yourself and present. You're on mute, Maman.
Thank you, Anne. Thanks very much for that introduction, Anne. My name is Mamoon. I'm the Senior Research Executive at the Chartered IIA, and I project managed Risk in Focus 2025 this year. Next slide, please. Thank you. So if you are already joining, if I could ask you to please go on Slido and enter the code Digital Disruption. Or, of course, you can scan the QR code now, and that will be available during the session. With the Slido, you can participate in the Q&A, ask questions, and also rank the questions so that they get asked first. And also, you can request a CPE certificate via Slido. So thank you. So Anne's already taken us through the list of speakers. We've got Anne Brooke as our chair. So yes, thank you. So to start with, I'm going to give you an overview of the methodology for Risk in Focus 2025. This was our 9th annual Risk in Focus survey, and the survey was distributed in March last year amongst CAEs, and we received 985 responses in total, which was a record for the Risk in Focus project. And the survey spanned across 19 institutes and 20 countries. So for the research, we took part in 11 one-to-one interviews with a range of experts, chief audit executives and academics, as well as 5 roundtables with 48 chief audit executives, experts and academics. A second set of roundtables on digital disruption, new technology and AI took place in November last year. And this roundtable explored best practice around the risk area. So this presentation is going to surmise some of the key findings from that roundtable. Thank you. Some of the key findings from the report last year included showing that digital disruption has moved up to 4th place in the risk ranking. And when you compare that to 2024, it was in 6th place. This is one of the fastest rising risks in Risk in Focus. Can I have the next slide, please? Thank you. So looking ahead to risks today versus risks tomorrow. So the survey asks what risks as chief audit executives expect to be prioritized in 3 years' time. And the movement being predicted for 3 years' time in 2028 is that digital disruption, new technology and AI will move from 4th place to 2nd place. And so the trajectory for this risk is expected to rise in 3 years' time. So it's really important that internal auditors are aware of it. Next slide, please. Thank you. So just to give you an overview of some of the findings from the report itself. So as I've already said, the risk is expected to rise to second place in 2028. What does that mean for internal auditors? Well, that would mean upskilling for many internal audit teams. It means that human capital efforts in this area is becoming strategically more important. In the first set of roundtables, chief audit executives spoke about the importance of developing and adopting an AI strategy as one of the key goals for organizational success. Some CAEs spoke about the organizations banning the use of AI because for a range of reasons. So some of these included known faults within the program, unintended publication of confidential data, inaccuracy in some AI output. And that means that trust can become a major issue for AI systems, especially with the rise of AI-powered cyber attacks. However, other organizations saw it as a tool to enhance their organization's business output, as well as looking to support internal audit around business risks. Can I have the next slide, please? Thank you. So one of the first areas that the second set of roundtables in this area looked at was strategic risks. So participants agreed that there needs to be a collective effort not to think about digital disruption, new technology, and AI in silos, and that internal audit are working alongside the rest of the organization to break up these silos. There was also emphasis on boards being aware of these risks and also challenging internal audit with questions around how much internal audit are using new technology and AI for emerging risk anticipation. Some other insights from the roundtable included making sure that exploring strategic risks are part of the business as usual process for innovation, trying to capture new opportunities linked to the business strategy, assessing the opportunities as well as the risks associated with new technology. Roundtable participants spoke about experimenting being key for their organization regarding new technology, as well as raising awareness. There's a high expectations from boards to ensure that something is in place regarding this. And there was also a consensus that being selective about opportunities that this new technology brings and asking themselves, are they having the return on investment that they expect from investing in these technologies? And finally, information sharing was also something that was considered really important. And one participant in particular spoke about the European Commission, and that has been developed an AI pact where 130 organizations have signed up to share best practice around deploying the requirements of the AI Act. Thank you. The second aspect that we spoke about was regulatory risk. Participants highlighted that the governance framework for AI has been mostly based on the European AI Act, and that's a challenge that will be able to see how the governance of other countries operate with and develop their own governance. And as that may cause more challenges when comparing to American counterparts around AI risk, where regulations might deem some things high risk in comparison to other regions. So other regions may have opportunities that Europeans may not have due to the regulation. So taking part in the AI, can we go back one slide, please? Thank you. Taking part in the AI Pact with 130 organizations will give companies visibility on how others approach and comply with regulatory requirements. There'll need to be more work done to ensure that our internal framework aligns with different regulations in different countries. One participant spoke about using an ethical assessment, where this is a guided list of questions that they use to answer, touching on several regulatory points from privacy, transparency, and accountability, where each area is scored across different sections, and this helps to determine where they stand from a regulatory risk point of view. So, yeah, next slide. Thank you. Participants, they also spoke about ethical risk in some detail. So this is an area that hasn't been audited as often as some of the participants highlighted. Some of them spoke about having a framework model in place on ethical risk. And some of them spoke about not having anything at all in place, but being aware of the risks. So responsible AI requirements will link to support ethical risks, which is evolving. This is a risk area that requires more focus. Things will evolve in future, and it's an important area to continue monitoring. Participants spoke about this being an important area of focus for internal audit, especially in relation to AI. So it's important to recognize that there can be bias in AI, and it can be discriminatory, which impacts the results. This is something to be very cautious about. However, it's an area that they're aware of, but they haven't audited just yet. So, so that brings us to an end of the presentation and just an overview of some of the things that were discussed in the roundtable. I'm going to pass you back to my colleague, Anne, who's going to take you through the panel discussion. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Maman. I don't know if it's possible. I did notice that there are a few hands going up. I don't know if that's around being able to ask questions. I don't know if it's possible to put the QR code back up for the Slido for any late arrivers to actually be able to kind of pop some questions in. So if you did arrive late, didn't have the full introduction, then you can ask questions using Slido. So I don't know if that's possible to get that back up on screen for everybody. So thank you very much. Thank you, Maman, for taking us through that and the second round of the roundtable discussions as well. I have some questions which I'm going to pose to the panelists. And obviously that may prompt you as attendees to think of some questions, or you might already have some burning questions. Thank you very much for putting that back up. Might have some burning questions already, so please do put them on Slido, and as we said, you can vote for those questions, so they'll come up to the top of the list when we get round to that section. But first of all, just to get some juices flowing and kind of thinking about kind of some areas, I'm going to come to you first, Daniel, with this one. But broadly speaking, how has digital disruption reshaped the role and priorities of internal audit in organisations? And what are the key challenges and opportunities for internal audit concerning AI and emerging technologies?
Thanks, Anne, and thanks all first for the invitation to this webinar. So as Mamoun was commenting and explaining, I think digital disruption is accelerating. So in this context, I identify two main areas of focus for internal audit. So the first one is about the assurance and advisory services we provide around those digital emerging risks. And the other one is about internal audit adopting these technologies, AI, automation, etc., for becoming more effective and efficient. So focusing on the first one, our role in this digital transformation, digital disruption risks, I think that if internal audits wants to remain relevant, I think we need a seat at the table. So in order to achieve this, I see that we should focus on, firstly, I think we need a more proactive and strategic advisory role on this risk. I think we need to be more vocal about these risks. I think we need to provide insights and recommendations on digital strategies and governance. And third, I think we need to integrate within the most relevant digital transformation initiatives from the beginning in order to ensure that risks are identified and managed early on. That will be one of the opportunities I see. The other one is about the about internal audit becoming more efficient and effective through the use of an audit in these technologies. For example, in the case of my internal audit function, we have been using data analytics and continuous auditing for a long time. We introduced machine learning a few years ago, but now what we see and we feel is that the opportunities that we have with generative AI are huge, especially, for example, with the possibility of processing entire population of unstructured data as contracts, permits, invoices, even customer calls that we can only review a sample. So I have talked about opportunities, but there are also challenges. We will highlight three. So the first one will be the complexity of the technology. So we need expertise and knowledge about these areas. So we can even either upskill our teams for these methodologies, these tools, etc. We can even try to recruit and retain talent in a very competitive job market. The second challenge I see is the speed of change. So it's difficult, the speed of change of the technology, so and regulation. So if we need to keep up to date for following these changes. And the third one will be, for me, is crucial, is the capability of being able to communicate effectively with the audit board, with the senior manager, with the committee, senior manager of the board about this complex and technology risk, which is not always easy.
Thank you very much. Mark, your thoughts?
Yeah, so if I would have the same webinar last week on Tuesday or something like this, I probably have a different introduction. But just think about this. Yesterday, this whole DeepSeek thing where 1.5 trillion US dollars market cap was burned just showed how important this technology is for organizations. So why is this important for us as a profession? Because we have to understand that over the last, decades, actually, internal audit was always trying to use tools to improve their work. So we started with whatever dashboards, and then we started with spreadsheets, then we're coming to dashboards, then with more advanced things. Daniel talked about machine learning and whatsoever. I think currently one of the major issues that we have is that our profession is not able to understand that we have to be first mover here to, on the one hand side, guarantee a good assurance for the organization, but on the other hand, also improve our work. So from my point of view, it's super important to see that we have to be future-oriented as internal auditing. We have to focus, or at least really understand which digital disruptions are in front of us and how we can, use this technology and these digital disruptions to improve our efficiency and effectiveness. Because then, like Daniel said, I think we have a fair chance to get a very good seat at the table and discuss with the C-level and the audit committee why it's so important to have a very strong internal audit function. On the other hand, to be honest, and we're doing research in this field of technology and internal audit for the last 7, 8, 9 years, and when it comes to AI and internal audit for the last 3 years. Most of the internal audit shops are still in its infancy when it comes to the use of technology and also when it comes to the use of AI. All of us maybe played around with ChatGPT every now and then, some of us more, some of us less. But the problem is that we as an internal audit function should really have a clear, vision in our mindset or in our organization to say, we want to adopt this specific technology to, address this specific purpose or risk or whatsoever. So the problem is, from my point of view, on the one hand side, the missing mindset. Not all internal auditors see, for example, AI as an opportunity. Most of them only see AI as a risk. Second thing is, we do not have the required expertise and knowledge to, integrate all of these new approaches into our internal audit function. Third thing, it's often also a money thing, right? There are some budget constraints, and it's not that easy to just invest hundreds of thousands of euros or whatsoever into new technologies. Nevertheless, and this is also something that our research shows, we can improve the efficiency and effectiveness by 40%. And this means we can cover more risk of the organization. We can improve the assurance. We can actually make a better job. So that's my specific point of view. And that's the reason that I would always say that the digital disruption is a unique opportunity for us and not a threat.
Thank you very much. It sounds like what we're talking about here is about having a clear strategy for AI in internal audit. And it may well be that so far we've been quite reactionary rather than actually proactively kind of planning what our work will be and looking ahead to the future and preparing for that future, which links very nicely to the global internal audit standards and having an internal audit strategy. Kind of how does AI and digital disruption feature in that strategy kind of for the future? So thank you very much. My second question is what are the most significant strategic risks associated with AI adoption and digital transformation, and what role does internal audit play in the long-term strategic risks of integrating new technologies into business models?
I think that one of the main challenges is right now that most of the organizations just say we have to have, for example, AI, without having, like I said before, a clear path. And because of this, we're actually generating more strategic risks than actually mitigating strategic risks through the use of this technology. I think it's super important that we not only say, AI, that's just one piece, and we just put it, attach it to all of the other activities. We just have to, if we want to have a solid structure, we just have to align all of these technological advancement that comes together with AI with our normal strategic objectives. And I think that this is really, really, really important because, and to be honest, even when you talk to C-level members or AC members, it's not that all of them have, PhD from MIT in data analytics and machine learning. And that's the reason that sometimes even, the top management does not fully understand how, when, and why integrate AI, for example, into our activities. And this is a super risky situation because just one short additional sentence, when you now look at the traditional audit software vendors, all of them are now saying, now we integrated AI. But it's not like they integrated AI because they invented something in their function. What they're using is normally the interfaces, the APIs to some of the big vendors like OpenAI or Google Gemini or whatsoever. And so you have a tiny AI feature, but it's not like you have a completely new product. And I think it's very important for us to understand as internal auditors, we have to, really put our fingers into this wound and say, hey, CEO, CFO, CIO, if we want to go that route, if we want to really focus on AI, we have to understand that this should be a main part of our strategy and that we have maybe a situation where we have to, restart our strategic development process again so that we identify when and when not does it make sense or does it not make sense to integrate AI. For us as internal auditors, we are normally aware or we are trained to identify these type of risks and also communicate these risks. And that's the reason that I think we have a very critical role in, helping the organization to align this technology integration with the overall strategy.
Thank you. Daniel.
I agree with what Mark was saying, and I think that it's key that the organizations have a proper and sound digital strategy that is linked to the strategic objectives of the company. One of the risks I see is that organizations do nothing, do very little, or even try but fail with the digital transformation programs, and therefore they can lack or lose competitive advantage. So fall behind competitors who are more agile to adopt and implement these technologies, being more efficient, or even being disrupted by new competitors that alter existing markets or current business model. So obviously, the companies are investing heavily in digital transformation programs that brings also new risks. And we will talk about them during the webinar about the regulatory compliance and the new AI Act and other different jurisdictions regulations. We will talk about ethical risk, regulatory, reputational, resilience, operational disruption due to poor performance of the models, etc. So I think the role of internal audit in these areas is mostly about reviewing the digital strategies, the AI strategy we have in place, making sure that they're aligned to strategic objectives, make sure we have proper and adequate change management plans and future change management plans for them. I think also we need to make sure we have proper governance, proper risk management, and internal control systems aligned to these specific risks. We need to ensure that we have an appropriate talent management program for AI capabilities, which is very important in a competitive market and rapid evolving market. And also, I think we can add value by performing regulatory readiness reviews before regulations entering into force.
Thank you. I think you're right. I mean, AI is something that's quite pervasive in an organization. It can be everywhere. And actually, it's adoption of AI, changing process, it's all about change. And actually, kind of where, you can lack skills is not just in AI, but in change, in transformation and project management and that talent recruitment. And, I've been talking to a few organizations and they asked me, how do we recruit onto boards, AI knowledge? Well, do you need detailed technical AI knowledge on the board? If you can't get it, actually change understanding, transformation program understanding, because this is what you could be doing as an organization. And it could be those skills that you want to look at as well as an organization, and audit those from an internal audit perspective, because those are the infrastructures that actually allow and enable AI adoption and change. So absolutely. So I could talk about this forever. Next question that we have, how has the adoption of new technologies and AI altered the regulatory risk landscape for organizations? And how can internal audit keep up with the fast evolving regulatory requirements driven by technological advances? Daniel.
So obviously, the rapid digitalization of our environment has led to increase of the regulatory scrutiny on digital technologies. Governments and regulatory bodies are developing and implementing new regulations addressing new risks posed by these new technologies. If I focus on the European Union, I think we can talk about a regulatory tsunami. So I was reading the Draghi report, which was issued last September, is focusing on EU competitiveness. And it states that I think it's around, we have in place more than 100 tech-focused laws and over 270 related regulatory bodies across member states. So basically, we have GDPR, we have DORA, we have NIS2, we have the Digital Markets Act, we have the Digital Service Act, we have the Data Governance Act, among others, and also we have the Artificial Intelligence Act, which entered into force August last year, which has been the first and most prominent AI regulation in the world. So basically, The regulatory environment is becoming more complex, diverse, with different jurisdictions adopting different approaches, and this diversity requires for the organizations to navigate a patchwork of different regulations, which is challenging. What can internal audit do to help with this risk? I think we need to continuously monitor the regulatory landscape, which evolves fast, and adapt accordingly our audit plans. I think we need to invest in training, upskilling our team members in order to keep up to date with all the regulatory changes. I think, and it's for me that it has been working well for our organization, be proactive with readiness assessments, making sure that before the regulation enters into force, we can identify potential regulatory compliance risk, and we can recommend and promote mitigation strategies. I think we should make sure that the governance and management models that we have for operating AI or digital technology is aligned with the regulatory requirements. And finally, I see opportunities for combined assurance, partnering with legal and compliance.
Thank you. Mark?
Yeah, first of all, I can totally echo what Daniel said. I think it's super important that we have to be aware that these new regulations will have a direct impact on the organizations. And, you know, when you think about this EU AI Act, while most of the organizations will only be in the low risk level and don't have to have any, you know, specific activities, it nevertheless makes totally sense that we have a very strong and valid governance framework for these type of technologies. And also, and sorry to once again refer to our previous studies. So a couple of years ago, we did a lot of research about robotic process automation, because that was a big thing, right? That we can actually automate invoice booking and so on. The problem is that you could see, or that you right now still can see, that organizations do not have clear governance mechanisms and internal controls to actually mitigate the new existing risk based on this technology. And we now see the same thing when it comes to AI. So one of the big, we have we created a framework. You can download it free of charge. And we validated it with more than 1,000 professionals. We presented this to COSO in the United States and to the SEC. And one of the problems is that most of the organizations currently do not know where AI activities are in their organization. They do not know who is responsible for the use of AI activities. And they do not have the required, you know, trainings, guidelines, and so on and so forth. So the problem is now, when we now have, you know, this huge wave of the EU AI Act coming, and we're just standing there and say, yeah, to be honest, we're just using this because it's a fancy thing. Like I said, we have to have this in our strategic plan, but we do not have clear control and governance mechanisms. This wave will actually hit us, and I'm guessing that this will not be, you know, super cool situation. So I think it's very, very important that we have to communicate every time to our main stakeholders, to the C-level, to the audit committee, to the auditees. If you use these new technologies, congratulations, that's a fantastic step for our organization to become better. But always think about the required governance structures, the required control structures, the potential inherent risks. If you have questions there, hey, just contact internal audit, because we can help you to actually reduce the risks that are existing in your function while you're using these type of technologies. And I think that this is really, really helpful. And it's actually, from my point of view, a unique opportunity. And, you know, I presented at different conferences and talked about this AI effect on the profession. And every now and then I just hear colleagues saying, yeah, there's a risk that I lose my job. And I was like, yeah, there's a potential risk. But on the other hand, because of this massive huge of new technologies in the organizations, we need much more assurance. But we have to, you know, reshape our skill set a little bit. We have to be able to do, you know, these type of more IT focused audit procedures to actually create assurance over, for example, AI. And I think that this is really important. If we want to address this risk, and Mamoun was showing the results of the risk and focus study, if we want to address these top risks, we have to have the motivation to actually change what we are currently and focus more on these new things that are in front of us, even if we are maybe not very good trained already.
Thank you. One final pre-question, if you like. I'm going to kind of cut you down on time for this one. Unfortunately, we're running a little bit behind. But what are the ethical risks arising from the adoption of AI and digital technologies in organisations? And what role does internal audit play in identifying and mitigating ethical risks associated with algorithmic bias or discrimination in AI systems? So to you first, Mark.
And that's a question where we can have a 2 or 3 hour webinar about, because it's so complicated. I think that one problem is that, especially in the media, we only have a black and white picture, right? Everybody is discussing how risky this ethical decision making might be, or this ethical judgments are. But this is not because the AI systems are discriminating a specific whatever group. It's just because of the training data. And this is something that we're not discussing often enough. And I just trying to, really hammer this into the brains of our students and saying, always have to have in mind, the data is actually the reason that one of the AI or machine learning models is going this or that direction. It's not because the systems themselves are racist or whatsoever. So, and now coming to the role of internal audit, that's a very tough question, because in most of the cases, internal auditing will not be able to understand the data structure, the training data structure that was used to create these AI models. Because even if you are in a very large organization, you cannot call OpenAI or Google and say, hey, you know what, it would be fantastic if I would get access to the training data of your current models, because then I can validate if there are potential risks. So the only thing from my point of view that we can do is create awareness and say, depending on the specific system, there is maybe an outcome that's not the perfect one, because there are biases, there maybe is something that we do not want to see when these type of systems give us responses. But I think it's very, very important to understand the driver behind all of this is data, nothing else.
Daniel. Oh, you're on mute still, Daniel. It's okay.
Sorry. So for me, this will be the area that we are entering a new world that is challenging for us. So to be honest, in my internal function, we haven't been able to do comprehensive activities until now for AI development, etc. But definitely we have in the plan for this year to do reviews of ethical risk for specific use cases. So, but we will need to develop our own internal audit methodology for assessing these risks. So we will look for references external for the NIST, Risk Management Framework for Artificial Intelligence, the EU trustworthy analysis that have been produced, other Big Four references, but we will need to develop our methodology to assess those ethical risks, and we will have challenges and as ethical risk that, for example, lack of transparency and explainability. So the black box problem. So sometimes we are going to find systems that are difficult to understand, are very complex, and we need to make sure that the decisions and the factors driving their decisions, outcomes of the algorithm are transparent, explainable. We need to make sure, as Mark was highlighting some challenges, that the data sources uses for training, the data collection methods, potential limitations, transparency and the limitations of the algorithm. We will need to also assess the lack of fairness with bias or discrimination, and make sure we have controls in place for bias detection, ensuring that we have discrimination based on race, age, socioeconomic status. We will need to make sure also that we have human oversight and accountability that Mark was also mentioning. We need to make sure that humans are in control, still in control of these developments, and that still we are responsible for the actions the AI is performing. So for me, the role, the way I see for internal audit is to raise awareness of these ethical risks. We should be including this ethical risk in our risk assessments. I was doing this is a new thing, for example, for us in terms of AI. And then we need to test the controls, which also will be the first time for doing bias detection controls, explainability, human oversight, and so interesting year for us this year.
Yeah, it's kind of that, some have coined the phrase human in the loop, isn't it? It's kind of making sure that AI can produce all this, can generate all this, but actually, can we trust what comes out, and how do we make sure we can trust and therefore act upon what comes out of the AI tools? It's a really important part because, like you say, it's all generated from data, and if there's one tiny thing wrong with that data, or the way that the AI tool learns from that the training data, then that will generate problems with the outputs. And I go back to my original, kind of 25 years ago, first role in internal audit, rubbish in, rubbish out, and it's kind of, we still got that risk with things like AI tools that we need to be really careful of and mindful of, particularly given the much higher expectations in society around ethical responsibilities of an organisation as well. So I think that's really, really important. We've come to the end of the pre-questions, so we're now moving on to questions that have come from our audience. So we're just going to move through and find our questions. So here we go. So the first question couple with 23 votes. What could be the first steps for an internal auditor with zero experience in the cybersecurity field to start getting more information and knowledge about it? So where do people go to upskill? How do people upskill? Mark, I'll come to you first on that one, if it's okay.
Yeah, so the cool thing is with this question, you can also, interchange cybersecurity to artificial intelligence or data analytics or whatsoever. My current recommendation is go to ChatGPT, ask this question, and say, create a I'm not kidding. This works awesome. Ask this question and say, create a 10-step plan for me to become a cybersecurity auditor. Give me concrete sources, give me source documents, and so on. I think most of the initial knowledge that we need for our work is currently publicly available free of charge. Once you created this initial setup for the fine polishing of your expertise, then go to a dedicated seminar, go to the different conferences of the ECIIA, of the national IIAs, of global IIA, get in touch with these colleagues, work with working groups to then become a professional. But for the starting point, I'm not kidding, you can do it afterwards. Ask ChatGPT, hey, create me a 10 points plan to become a cybersecurity expert.
Wonderful. Daniel?
I also agree with the creative approach of Mark. I think we are also using and trying to test the capabilities of these copilots and tools. Yeah, I think I agree with Mark, and I think that there are opportunities for training, upskilling, professional associations for cybersecurity. For framing it, I won't say cybersecurity is the key capability or expertise that we need for assessing artificial intelligence risks, because we have talked about the strategic risk aligned with strategic objectives. We have talked about ethical risk, as has not much to do with technology, about philosophical or ethical values. We talk about data governance. But yeah, definitely cyber capabilities is part of the assessments, and we need to upskill regarding it.
Thank you. Second question we can see on screen is examples of applying artificial intelligence meaningfully to internal audit activities. So, Daniel, can you give some cases of how AI can be used by internal audit itself?
So I was mentioning when answering the first question, when I was answering opportunities for applying or adopting AI technologies for our processes, I was mentioning, and that's a key development and is included as a key point in our digital strategy for internal audit, is the use of AI solutions for processing unstructured data. So for us has been a game changer. So as I was telling before, we have been working for years with structured data. So we have been doing data analytics, automation, continuous auditing, even machine learning. But the capabilities that for us, we have millions of invoices to review and make sure it conforms to some kind of requirements, contracts. We have also this year, we have doing things about this area. So contracts, invoices, customer calls. So we have a speech to text, and then we have this kind of AI capabilities, understanding the conversations, summarizing, giving information for our testing. So for us, it's totally a game changer. And obviously, as Mark was saying in the previous question, we can ask these kind of tools about proposing draft test programs. We can ask them to summarize documents, to highlight or identify patterns, or we can use it for fraud identification activities. So for the future, it can also help us drafting our reports and then use it as a basis, and then to review and enhance the output of the tool. So we find that there's plenty of opportunities. It's a new world for us.
Mark.
Maybe as some additional perspectives on Daniel's use cases. The thing that all of us can directly do is use AI for brainstorming. You know, risk brainstorming, you prepare your upcoming audit engagement. And what we normally would do is we sit together with the audit team, we scan the previous audit results, discuss this, should we focus more on this or that? And this normally takes between 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 hours. Multiplied with the number of auditors engaged or staffed on this engagement. Just use ChatGPT, use a very good prompt, and then you get your initial answer in a couple of seconds. Is this perfect? No, definitely not. But it's an 80%, 85% solution. Then afterwards, sit then together with your team, polish this starting point to get from 85 to 100%. And we invest too much time into discussing things where we brainstorm about whatever fraud risk and internal controls and audit procedures, but these systems just give us a very good start. Then, as some more advanced things, think about we're using this, or we have currently one project where we use this for healthy and security audits, where we analyze the images, and by pressing the button after you upload the images, you get a full report. If someone of the participants on this webinar just wants to get in touch with us, just shoot me an email or connect with me on LinkedIn, because we're always looking for companies that use this and also validate if this is really working, yes or no. And I think that we just have to be open-minded and brave enough to try some new things. And like Daniel said, Daniel said, especially where we are normally not that good when it comes to, unstructured data and so on and so forth. These type of systems can just help us to at least have a very good starting point.
Yeah. It is very much from the people I'm talking to, where they're adopting AI. It's in every phase of an engagement. There are absolutely opportunities. That upfront research, just asking the question, what could be the audit objectives for an audit of payroll or an audit of AI or whatever it might be, that is, it just gives you a good starter for 10 to then take away kind of thing and feed into what you're doing at the testing stage, actually, kind of getting narrative documents and asking AI to produce a summary or to compare two documents to each other. kind of where are there inconsistencies, kind of that kind of manual of reading to 20-30 page documents to see, do they marry up, kind of do they work cohesively. If that's an audit test, that's something that AI can do. And then in the reporting, kind of what's the key risk here, here's an issue, here's a finding, what's the risk or what's a potential root cause here. So there are so many ways that it can be really meaningful and help, but always as an internal auditor, our role is to look at that output and go, does this make sense? What else do I know that maybe hasn't been taken into account here, and what have you? And how do I best communicate this and share this? So our role is not going, it's just changing. We've got a new tool to help us. So I think we've just got time for one last question. We'll try and squeeze the next two in. But what key controls should internal auditors prioritise to address risks from AI-driven decision-making and cybersecurity risks? So just give me the top three kind of key controls that you think an internal audit should be focusing on in providing assurance over AI and cybersecurity.
So if you ask me, I would say don't reinvent the wheel. So you have proper control management systems for cybersecurity and data privacy. You should apply those and not doing a specific focus for them. For sure, there are specifics, but those management frameworks should include specific requirements for AI, specific, etc. And for me, then it's ethics controls, which we should focus as internal audit. And I will say, I was commenting before, explainability controls, transparency, bias detection controls, and human oversight and responsibility controls.
Thank you, Daniel. Mark, quick list from you.
Okay. First of all, just go to the website, genai.global. There's this framework. There are 67 controls with a detailed description. You can download this free of charge in 9 different languages. And my top 3 list is inventory. Look for human in the middle approaches, and look for documentation. That was a quick free hit.
Quick. Time for, I'm just going to squeeze one more in, which is about the skill sets. What skill sets will be needed in the future for internal audit teams in order to cope with the emerging AI, kind of cross-functional teams, data sciences, information security scientists, where, kind of what are the skills that we're going to need for the future? Mark, if I can come to you first on that one.
Yeah. So we started in the last winter term dedicated master's program, internal audit in artificial intelligence. That's the first in the world. But we only have 4 courses or 5 courses focusing on data analytics, AI, and machine learning, and so on. The most important thing is that we are able to use the technology. We will not be able to, hire well-trained super data scientists because, first of all, they're super expensive. Second thing, the market is actually empty. Third thing, do we really need them to have a better internal audit function, or do we just need the knowledge how to actually interact with the technology, and if we have specific questions, maybe use the systems? I think that's, from my point of view, the approach. So I will not go for all of us have to become AI engineers. That will not happen from my point of view.
Daniel, do you agree?
Yeah, I will also highlight soft skills as critical thinking, think out of the box, communication skills, but thinking about technical skills, I will talk about the reflection we do my internal audit function, our digital strategy. So we decided to go for cross-functional teams. So we have a thing we call the digital hub for internal audit. So we have inside that digital hub, we have experts in domain knowledge. We have experts, data scientists, and we have IT or technology experts. And we work collaboratively in order to achieve our objectives. So definitely we have different roles and capabilities, not having a super, as Mark was saying, a super specialized data scientist in place.
Thank you very much. I'm just going to squeeze, because there's one question on there kind of around about the confidentiality if internal audit want to use AI as a tool but do not have in-house tools. Obviously, a lot of these AI tools are out there on the internet. And I think one thing, and it comes back to ethical, the risk of using them as well, but also regulatory risk, around GDPR and so on, that we can't be sharing customer data, we can't be sharing internal sensitive data in an open AI tool that's out there on the internet. They, kind of where we're using them, it needs to be a closed tool within our organization, because we don't want to create any confidentiality breaches, and that goes back to the standards. And I think that does pose a lot of challenges for organizations, particularly smaller ones, in using AI tools, because they are, kind of the ones they have access to are those that are out there in the wider world, so to speak. Have you got any advice or thoughts, Mark, Daniel, on how people in those situations can actually start to use AI in a safe way without breaching that confidentiality?
Actually, what we normally say during our whatever trainings when we train practitioners is, first of all, always try to anonymize the data. So not saying whatever, Peter Miller from blah, blah, blah department was in this specific fraud case. Second, so first of all, use a private, unique email address and not your work address when you assess the systems. Second thing, try to anonymize the prompts. That's not a problem. That's not super complicated. And I would not totally agree and that you cannot automatically. What is really high secure information that we have in the organization? We can at least, oh, that's AI in Teams, right? At least we can try to reduce the confidential information or reduce the level of confidentiality and say, okay, we try to anonymize this. And then if you have something and you feel uncomfortable, use a 4i principle. Ask some of your colleagues should sitting next to us. And then there was one question also, should we mention that we used AI? Talk to your boss if you're a staff internal auditor, or talk to the CEO or AC and said, we have a chance to improve our work, but we have to use these systems. We will take care with the 4i principle that no sensitive data is actually given to these systems. That's one approach if you're not able to actually pay for a located model.
Daniel.
And I agree with what Mark says, and I will add that it depends on the security policy your company has in place. So obviously this is we're introducing data privacy, cybersecurity risks. It's possible, and I think it's an opportunity also to use third-party tools to perform these activities, but we need to do a thorough risk assessment process. We used to complain about regulation, but in this case, the AI Act, I think, will help us in the future to make sure the third parties, those service providers we are using that are developing these models, ensure privacy, security, and fairness of these models.
Okay, thank you very much. We're running out of time with 2 minutes to go, so I am going to have to bring it to a close, I'm afraid. I think there's a lot of messages there around disruptive technology, AI being the one of the moment, kind of 3, 4, 5 years time, there could be another one, we don't know. And I think one of the key things is that change is here. It's never going to go away. And it's really important as internal auditors that we embrace change, not only for our own processes, but also encourage our organisations to, but embrace it in a safe way, and to really understand those risks so that the decisions that are made are really sound and for the best future possible for the organisation and its customers and the people it provides a service to. So just a last thank you from me, to Daniel, to Mark and to Mamoon for kind of being here today and sharing their wisdom. I hope you found the questions helpful and obviously the answers more helpful than the questions. I kind of have a great day and hope to see you on another one soon. Don't forget to fill in the form for your CPE certificate as well on Slido. Please take care and have a great day, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.